Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Awaken to Your Soul Path. I am your host, Barbara, and today I am joined by the beautiful Andrea Enright, and we are going to talk about freedom is the new F word. And I've been looking forward to this because Andrea is such an awesome woman, and we really connected when we talked last time. And she has such an inspirational story that hasn't been told on my channel yet. So I love diving into this. But for right now, thank you so much, Andrea, for joining me and for wanting to talk today.
Thank you, Barbara. I'm super excited to be here. And I'm sometimes just amazed at how LinkedIn can bring people together who clearly need to meet. So I
Right?
was thrilled to connect with you.
Exactly. I felt in my heart that I just needed to use it to reach out to like-minded people and connect and see if you can call in your people. Because in the end, we are not meant to do everything by ourselves, and the connections with other like-minded people are so incredibly valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to share insights and trade energy.
Yes, exactly. So freedom is the new F word. That is going to cause some attention from people.
What do you think? What do you think when I first say it? What's it make you feel?
I'm intrigued.
Okay. Okay. Good. So yeah, I think this has come about because of just there is a natural conditioning that happens over time
Mhm.
wherever you go up in whatever family, whatever country, whatever environment, whatever decade, there are certain social and conditional cultural conditioning that occurs. Like, this is the way it's supposed to be. This is what you should do. This is how you should set the table. This is how what your marriage should look like. This is what success should look like. Here's what love looks like, and of course, it's no one's fault. I received all these messages as I was growing up from my parents and from the society around me, and they were wonderful messages. And my point is not that you can't keep doing that, but I think my point is twofold. One, question everything,
Mhm.
make sure it's the right fit for you, and then based on your values and your evolving persona, or the work that you're doing on yourself, from there decide what's right for you.
Yes,
And you have a choice is the main message.
exactly. I've talked about this in another video. I call them the rules, the bullshit rules of life.
Yes, for sure.
The way things are supposed to be happening, the way you're supposed to be acting, the way a proper lady is supposed to be, for instance, or the manly man, or all those stereotypical things, but also the way you're supposed to cook spaghetti, or the way you're supposed to
Exactly.
make mashed potatoes, right? It's all these beliefs, and it's been handed down from generation to generation to generation. And I believe that when the first person thought about it, it had merit. It made sense, it was necessary, and it served a purpose. But when you hand it down, like the way to cook spaghetti, if you don't, oh no, my better example is cauliflower. My my ex didn't like cauliflower, and he said he would never eat it. And I learned to make it in a very different way, because at home in the Netherlands, people would put it up around lunchtime and then eat it with dinner time, and then it just looked like snot. And I
Right.
also look cauliflower. Yeah, this horrible. I didn't like cauliflower as well, but now I have this beautiful Italian recipe where you just sort of wok it in garlic oil and
Mm-hmm.
add lots of garlic and crude ham. Italian crude ham, and then they're still they have a bite, right? You make the flowers really small and they still have a bite. And then with the garlic and the salty ham, it's really delicious. And all of a sudden, he likes cauliflower. So and that's a very simple example, but it's also with the beliefs that we hold, and the beliefs about how we're supposed to act, or that you need to, a very common one is that you need to find the right partner, have the right education, find the right job, and then marry, settle down, have a house, get kids, maybe a dog or a cat, and be happy or something.
Yeah, and then we call this the escalator. Like, are you on the escalator? You're going up. You're going up. Oh, kids. Yep, check. Marriage, check. Kids, check. Career, check. And there is this idea, largely from what I acknowledge is fake, fairy tales and rom-coms and Disney, that I get it that it's a TV show and I
Hallmark.
get
You
it that
forget
it's fake.
Hallmark.
Right, that's a good one too. But in fact, it does get ground into our souls as though like, yes, you'll find a soulmate. Yes, you'll find a person who you complete. Yes, you'll be everything to someone else. You will be in love forever. And to people who that worked for and they found peace and happiness in that, I absolutely applaud them. You know, I'm not here to proselytize any other particular way, but my message is really just find your truth. Like, find the truth that works for you.
Exactly.
I mean, I love your example of the recipe was a great one, because that is a good example of tradition. And I wanted to say that there's nothing inherently wrong with tradition. You know, it can be such a really warming and comforting idea to have the same traditions at Christmas or at different holidays. And I think as we come up on the holidays now, you know, I really do love some of the traditions that my parents set up for us.
Mhm.
At the same time, my sister-in-law recently said traditions are peer pressure from dead people.
No, only if you allow them to, because that's where everything revolves around, right? It's not that you have to denounce everything. No, it's that you need to look at it and think, is it making me happy? And if the answer is a resounding yes, then by all means, keep doing it. If you love the traditions, if they make you feel warm and fuzzy and lovey-dovey or loved or whatever the positive emotions are, then keep on doing them. But
Yes.
if you're miserable around the holidays because your boyfriend's parents are divorced and you need to visit both of them in the same day, and that means driving for 3 hours in the car and the entire day being stuffed full with food, and then, you know, we're having to roll home at the end of the day feeling miserable and overstuffed and, you know, that type of thing, then, you know, please question it and change it into something better.
Right. And I would say that sometimes the voices that are telling you, this doesn't feel right, aren't very loud. Because I was also brought up in a people-pleasing culture. You know, you say the right thing, you come in, you connect with others first instead of yourself.
Yes.
You know, you say, this is what you have to say, this is what you have to do. Now, granted, those social graces got me very far in life, and there's value to them, as long as you're being, you know, really being true to yourself. But sometimes those messages aren't very loud. And sometimes they come in whispers, right? And
what if you don't know what your true self is? How can you be true to yourself if you have no clue who that is, right? And most of us, we don't stop and think about it. We don't stop and think, why am I feeling this way? Or even acknowledge that we're feeling a certain way that we might be thinking or should be thinking about. So it's all connected with, most people are, I think they call it unconsciously, unconsciously incompetent.
Interesting.
And then you become consciously incompetent. You become aware of your incompetence.
Yeah.
And then you become unconsciously, consciously competent, and then that evolves into becoming unconsciously competent, and then you're just competent without having to think about it. Yes,
That's beautiful. This sounds familiar. Is there an arc name to this slow graduation?
I think so, but don't ask me what it is because I barely
Sure.
remember this part.
I know. No, you did a great job figuring out those conscious and unconscious. So
right.
I think that is part of what my podcast does too, is because it's called Permission to Be Human. And so I'm trying to give people permission to listen to those whispers and just consider them. You know, don't stuff them down, because I think those questions and those whispers help us determine who we are.
Yes.
But I think you also made a great point that sometimes we don't know who we are. Sometimes we've been defining ourselves in relation to others our whole life. Like, you know, in relation to our children or our partner or our family. And when we get some distance from the close people in our lives, it's important to say, well, wait a second, who am I really? What do I think? You know, just Andrea.
I have a very deep intuitive knowing, and I've always had that. But as a child, people were scared of me because I knew things that I couldn't possibly know in their opinion. And then I was so spot on, it scared people. And they made me not use it. They made me feel like it was a bad thing and that I should forget about it and that it was scaring people and, all of these negative stereotypical beliefs about it. And because I heard that when I was very young and impressionable, along with a lot of other things that we are being said, that made me feel like there was something wrong with me. And though for a long time I seriously thought there was something wrong with me and I needed to be fixed. And that made me turn myself into someone I thought they wanted me to be. So then you are not yourself, then you're like an extreme people pleaser, and you sort of completely forget who you are when you try to be someone else for long enough. And then it
Exactly.
becomes very difficult, to stay true to yourself because you haven't been true to yourself for a very long time. So then you need to have some sort of awakening moment where
Yeah.
you realize that, well, this is not the way, and maybe you don't know what the way is, but at least you're exploring and open to the possibility of possibly maybe a better way, hopefully.
Right. In the beginning, that is how like slippery it is. You're like, maybe I'm tiptoeing in. I'm not sure. This is scary. It's something new. There's no GPS. There's no template.
Yeah.
And I feel like there are turning points, but they kind of start out small and then they grow and then you get braver and you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna try that again. Oh, I'm gonna try something even new, even more new. I have a little more confidence now in this new path. I'm gonna take my shoes off and I'm gonna run around. I'm gonna start down this new trail. But it takes time and a little resilience to get there.
Yes, most definitely. And lots of time, lots of patience, lots of falling down, getting back up again, lots of self doubt, but also beautiful moments. There can be loss. People need to be aware that when you embark upon this journey of aligning to your authentic self, your real self, that there will be resistance from the people in your environment, the people that really care about you will want you to be happy, and they might not completely understand, but if they see that you're doing something that means something to you, they will support you anyway, right? But
Yeah, I
there's
think
always this group of people that you have around you that want you to stay the way you are,
yeah, I can definitely relate to that.
right?
I think it feels like an abandonment sometimes when people change and you're not changing. And I speak from personal experience on both sides of that. And we say that one of the episodes we planned to do a while back is, waking up costs more than a latte.
Yes.
We drink coffee to wake up, but waking up has its costs. And
Mhm.
when I originally went through yoga training, say 10 years ago, it's really transformational for me. I didn't want to be a yoga teacher. I just wanted to deepen my practice, and it ended up being really cheap therapy for me, I think. And I learned that a lot of people go through this yoga training and then, they come out the other side and they're like, maybe they break up with their partner, maybe they get divorced, maybe they move.
Yeah.
There's big changes that happen. And I will say, yeah, definitely my life has changed a lot when I've gone through these, what I call like walking through fire and then waking up to a different reality.
Yes.
And it's very jarring. But ultimately, I found that sometimes letting things go is necessary to create space for new things to come in.
Yeah, but that's true. And it's just a matter of how you look at things. It's somebody told me once that tears are the pearls of the soul. And I love that analogy, right? Because it's a very different way of looking at crying. I think it was when I was apologizing constantly for being so emotional and crying. And he said, "Oh, but it's they are the pearls of the soul, so just let them be, right?"
Yeah.
And for
Yeah.
the people that are watching and listening, thinking, "Oh, this is not very a great prospect, right? Why would I embark on a journey like this when I'm going to lose and everybody or a lot of people that are dear to me. And
Yeah.
there's not a simple answer to it, but you also get a lot back, because in growing and in becoming more who you really are, you get this internal peace. You get a deep resonating internal peace. You get a lot more joy and happiness. You get a lot more positivity, and you meet wonderful new people who resonate on the same frequency as who you really are. And that means that your relationships become effortless with those people. Well, they are probably far from effortless with the people that you lose or lost.
Yeah, I agree. And I've gone through so much personal growth, and some of it willingly, and some of it like, ugh, I didn't expect this.
Unwillingly, yeah.
Right. And I wouldn't trade any of it. Like, even though it was really hard, so hard, but so many things that have been a catalyst for personal growth in my life have just changed me for the better. And I found that once you know things, you can't unknow them.
No, that is, and when you look back, I don't know how it is for you, but when I look back, I could see I was stubborn here and there, and I needed some more kicks in the ass probably before I finally learned the lesson I was meant to learn. And it was incredibly painful. And at the time, I really felt desperate, and I had no idea why this was happening. I was, at the end of my wits at a certain time, but now that you finally moved into the higher reaches and connect really with your deep self, now you can see why these things had to happen. They still suck, but at least you understand the why now.
Yeah. And I think they helped me develop a better relationship with my intuition. You spoke about having a very strong intuition when you were growing up, and so much that it scared people. And I honestly think I didn't have a relationship with my intuition for a good first third of my life. I wasn't listening to the whispers. They would whisper, and I would just say, well, I'm not sure. I'm going to go look for some more proof online or from my friends, or I'm going to go gather data, gather information, like a research project. I was very much in my head, not in my body.
Yes, I recognize.
And yeah. And I say that my intuition, threatened to pack up and leave because I was not paying attention to her at all. And then over time, I slowly started listening to those whispers and honoring them as my soul's truth. And that has made all the difference. But it's an ongoing journey. And I definitely can also get back in my head too much. Ideally, it's a balance. I remember learning in yoga training that your mouth is equidistant roughly from your heart and your brain. And so, ideally, I like to keep that rope taut, between my heart and my head.
Exactly.
And then, and then keep that balance there. But it's very challenging because my head is always threatening to take over, because my head wants to be masculine. It wants to plan. It wants to calculate. It wants to have a spreadsheet. It's very linear.
That was my survival, because the deep knowing I had was when I was very young, and by the age of 5 they had to sort of talked it out of me. So I completely unlearned it and lost touch with it. And the intuition, I didn't listen to it. I didn't even know what it was, or I completely disconnected from all of that. So I needed to relearn that later and reconnect with it. And now I'm tapped into it. But that was also another learning curve, because I had completely blocked it. So I recognize everything that you're saying, and that's the effect that people can have on you, especially when they start like your parents.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and that's something else I've learned to do is, although I'm still not good at it, is really protect myself, and set my boundaries, protect my own power. It's really easy to let someone take away your power. I just posted recently about the quality of the pause, when someone asks you a question. Yes. And in our society, there is this kind of urgency. Okay, well, what's going on? You got to tell me. We got to figure it out. You snooze, you lose. You better do it now. Time's ticking. Like, what's the answer? And, it seems such a basic concept, but trying to wait after someone asks me a question and breathe into it. And if I can't get to yes or no, I say, I don't know. So I guess it's a no for now. I'm not sure right now. I'll get back to you in the morning. I don't have an answer. I need more information. Just all these different responses that will
But they're
work
perfect.
instead of sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, because and that's what I hate about I shall not name names, but a lot of those marketing gurus out there, they teach you that you need to push on your sales call until the person says yes. And if you cannot let them go until they have said yes and have taken their credit card and given you the information, and preferably you charge them the first installment or the entire thing while having them on the call.
Right. That's true. And yeah, there is such a love-hate with that because I just want it to be organic. Like I want someone to feel called to work with me, not because I pressured them on a call. And there are other people that say, yes, but helping them see the benefit of working with you is part of your job. And those people are right. And so I think it's just this very delicate dance and that has to be played whenever you're selling your services.
Course, you need to show them the value of what you do. And if they cannot make up their mind, it could be that you didn't do your job good enough.
Maybe.
But I've also learned that since I tapped into human design in the Gene Keys, that certain profiles just need, I am one of those people, I need to have at least one night to think about it, to sleep on it, before all my emotions have subsided. And I can make a well-informed, intuition-based choice. If you pressure me into saying yes right on the spot, then it's a no. Even if it's the thing they absolutely need, want, and must have, it's a no, because you cannot push me anymore into making these decisions while before you can. But I think it's the projector that is they need a lunar cycle. Basically, they need 28 days to think things over and to feel into it and to follow you for a while and look at your stuff and read your things and then book another call, and then you might close them because then they've decided after 28 days, yes, I want to say yes to you. So it really doesn't work the same for everybody, and I believe that you can only do the best you can in the moment that you can do it, and then it's either you did it well enough and they come to the same conclusion because they're ready, because sometimes you do your job well enough and they're just not ready enough. And then pushing them also doesn't make any sense, and when you just let them go but keep in touch and keep supplying them with valuable things, they will come back. Trust it.
Yeah. And you spoke about processing there. And I think it's really important to note that two things: knowing yourself, like, how do I process things? Like, how much time do I need?
Yes.
How do I release my emotions? Do I need to cry? Do I need to scream? Do I need to go be alone? And then at the same time, also respecting your partners, right? So this gets into more relationships when you're more intimate with someone, knowing that different people have different needs and different processes. One of my good friends and podcast partner, she and I both are external processors, right? We like to leave each other these long messages, right? Because we're processing as we're talking, and it's very helpful.
Yes.
To both of us. In fact, we've gotten into the habit of playing our own messages back to us to listen and see, how we can listen between the lines of what we're saying. And then we give each other reflections on what we heard. And it's enormously helpful.
Yes.
But I'll say my husband is definitely an internal processor, right? And he needs more time to process things. I'm like, no, we have to do this right now because I need to get this out and, close it. And he can't do that. And so and my daughter is also different processor than me. And so when I go and rush to her room and want to apologize and have this closure, I'm doing it for me, but I'm not doing it for her because she needs time. And wanting someone to be different is what I just read recently, is kind of like wanting someone with black skin to have white skin. People are different and expecting them to be like you constantly is just, it's futile.
No, but that's where I see most things go wrong: expectations and communication, a combination of those things. Because if you expect everybody to be like you and then they act in ways that you would never ever do, then you're going to feel hurt and disappointed. and that's not going to work. But I had an ex who indeed was one of those people that immediately needed to talk about things, and he just needed to let me be. And sometimes he only had to let me be for 5 minutes, and I would come back and we can talk about it. Or sometimes he needed to let me be for a couple of hours, or sometimes even a day, depending on how I was feeling or what I was needing. But he always needed to have it in that moment, right now, and I need to apologize, and it needs to be spoken about, and it needs to be okay.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Relate. You're talking about me, right? There's just a sense of urgency.
but
And
if you talk about it with each other, if you can explain to the other, this is who I am, this is what I need, and I can say, oh, but this is who I am, and that is what I need, then you need to sort of find the middle ground in it, right? Where you think, trust that if you let me go, and that's why I said if he had let me go from the beginning, sometimes it would only need 5 minutes to just calm enough down so that I could come from a place of love when responding to something, instead of you hurt me, I hurt you.
yeah,
Because
right.
that's what happens when you push someone to respond before they're ready.
Yeah, exactly. And I've worked a lot and still working on, responding instead of reacting, right? Just this initial reaction. And that also gets into emotions and how I very much used to think, okay, I'm crying and it's because of something you did, right? You're causing me to cry. Like it's your fault that this happened. And it's like this culture of blame, of not taking responsibility for my own emotions.
Yes.
And it's something, it's hard. It's really hard after, I feel like many years of just thinking, well, no, I'm sad and it's your fault. Really taking responsibility and saying, these are my feelings. I get to have my feelings. No one can take my feelings away, and I need to own them. And
Honestly,
let's talk about how this impacted me and how we should move forward,
yes.
but not the blame, like really taking responsibility.
This, what you're talking about right now, is honestly my biggest problem with most people.
Really? Tell me
Yes.
an example. Like, what do you mean?
That they don't take responsibility for their own emotions, and they constantly blame the other person, and then are being very nasty or being very mean, or trying to hurt back or unfriend you, or actions like that, because they cannot see that although I am the one that's triggering the thing, I am not
Yes.
the one that's causing the thing. And those are two very different things. And I apparently do something that triggers something within you that I am probably not even aware of, because you're taking it in a way that I never ever even thought it could be taken. And then
Totally.
you're exploding, and you're hurt, and then you're reacting out of hurt and trying to hurt me back by being mean or nasty or unfriending me or ghosting me or all of those types of things. And then I think, yeah, but I've long ago discovered I am like, um maybe a mirror or a black hole, I'm not completely sure, but what you put in is also what you get out. So if you are being very kind to me and you think about me and you regularly send me messages, I'm very kind to you, I regularly think about you, I make an extra effort and I'm sending you messages. But if you're being a mean bitch, then I'm not doing those things. And chances are high, if I am having my period or I have slept bad or it's just a bad energy day, then I can be a bitch back. If I'm in a good day and I am in balance, then I can see those reaction and think, well, okay, I'm leaving it with you. And I don't have to be a bitch back. But that's a learning process or an ongoing working on process.
Absolutely. And we're all, and especially hard to work on it in real time when you're like, okay, oh, I'm supposed to respond this way. Oh, but I'm so mad, or I'm so angry, or I'm so sad. And I think this gets into a little bit of the discomfort versus comfort. So we've been saying lately, my podcast partner and I, a lot, like, discomfort leads to growth. Like, I'm so tired of hearing it because I'm so tired of being uncomfortable. Like, I'm just like, oh my God, please stop saying that. She's right. And I know it's right. Discomfort leads to growth. And so what we talk a lot about is the willingness to be uncomfortable. Now, and what I mean by that is, when my husband might suggest something to me that makes me uncomfortable, but it doesn't mean that I'm like, I'm not going to throw a tantrum and like need to be comfortable again. I'm just like, oh, okay, rationally, I don't have a big problem with that. It makes me a little uncomfortable, but I'm willing to sit with that discomfort if this is helping your life.
Yes.
And so just that statement alone, just like trying that out is somewhat novel, I think, in a partnership, because we're usually like, no, I don't like that. Stop doing it. Right.
Yes.
And so the willingness to sit with that discomfort is challenging, but it's basically what has led me toward my biggest growth periods and been a growth catalyst, is saying, oh, this is out of my comfort zone, but I'm willing to go slowly and see where it leads. And
Yes.
in America, like, and maybe, this is, I'm totally talking about the country that I live in, but you too, is that there is just such a call for comfort, right? I mean, I don't have to go very long with being uncomfortable, because I'm just going to call Amazon and order a sweater and it'll be here in 2 hours if I'm cold. Like, and so I can get more stuff, more coffee, more jewelry, more purses, more, more dog food in 2 hours. And so I don't have to be uncomfortable very long. In our society, that's made that possible, which is beautiful and convenient, and also doesn't build a lot of resilience.
No, that is absolutely true. And I discovered for myself, for instance, that even though I was thinking that I was surrendering and allowing, I was still basically paddling upstream. I was improving my boat. I was hiring more rowers, and I was convincing myself that those were improvements, and that I was uh, enjoying success. But in all honesty, I was still trying to row upstream. I was still trying to make sure that my business reached a certain level or had a certain income or things like that. And it's interesting how these things work.
Yeah. And that's you in your head, right? Like hiring more rowers, like, adding to your spreadsheet, putting in the list, and that recently I've been
I didn't
talking.
see it that way. I thought that because everybody tells you, if you want to be successful, you shouldn't be doing everything by yourself. You need to learn how to outsource. So I hired someone who did this for me and someone who did that for me. That's what I meant with the new rowers. They help your boat, but it's not guaranteed that you're flowing downstream. They were still helping me paddle upstream in a direction that my business shouldn't be going in, but because I was convinced that I just needed to work a little bit harder to be successful, back to the paradigms and the things that we inherit from, in this case, parents and grandparents.
Yeah. Yeah. And emotional inheritance is really big there too. Just like what restrictions and what suppressions have we inherited from our ancestors through our religion, through their cultural conditioning, through, how open or closed their mind was. And I've had to really look at that too. It's fascinating and freeing if you can move that energy, that stuck energy through.
Yes. And that also has a lot to do with being comfortable in the discomfort, because I wasn't comfortable in the discomfort. I worked really hard to get away from the discomfort and to make things happen that would make me feel comfortable. And I was calling it being wise and outsourcing and not doing everything by myself and following advice from gurus. But in the end, it's was not working, and you were trying too hard. I didn't really believe that there was such a thing as trying too hard, but there is a thing in trying too hard. And that's basically like a hidden form of control.
Interesting. A hidden form of control. Yeah. You think you're controlling things, but it's almost like an illusion of control.
Yes.
Potentially. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. You think you're controlling things, but you're not making, you're orchestrating instead of listening or reading the room or deciding what wants to happen or listening to spirit, we can call it, or listening to your intuition. But when you're in a panic and you don't have enough money and there's certain things that really call that into It's like, okay, start your engines. We better do something about this.
Yeah. I'm
Never
scared
mind.
to lose everything. I'm scared to lose my
Yeah.
house. I'm scared to not be able to pay my bills. All of these things can be very motivating to work harder and to try even more and to do even more, because it feels very counterintuitive to sit down and meditate for 8 hours a day instead of working your ass off to get more clients.
I know. So counterintuitive.
Right?
And yeah, and that also reminds me of just alone time, which as an extrovert, I did not need or take very much alone time for the probably first half of my life. I was just constantly meeting new people, building new relationships. If I wasn't with my friends, I was with my child or my partner, or it just alone time wasn't a thing. And when I was growing up, it certainly wasn't a thing. It's like, you didn't just like, if you had company over, there was no staying in your room. Like, you had to come out. That was just expected. And now, I've learned to take alone time, partly from my daughter. She's really good at boundaries. She's like, I need chill time. She's always taking it. And, I'm trying to honor that for her. And then being alone for me, I have learned through the way my marriage is set up, because we are polyamorous. My husband has a girlfriend who lives, here in our town. He sees her twice a week. I had a boyfriend for a long time who lived in a different city. And so I would visit him once a month. And in general, I really came to treasure my alone time when my husband wasn't here.
Mm-hmm.
And early on, and, not going to bed together or sleeping in separate rooms or, would have just been unheard of, because I was taught, and I get that, because that don't go to bed angry, right? You don't fight. And if you're not sleeping in the same bed, that means there's a problem.
Yes.
When in fact, you're giving your energy away when any time that someone else is in the room, especially for a mom. I think I'm speaking for moms, but my experience has been, I'm tracking what my husband and my daughter are doing if they're in the room, or even if they're in the house, right? I'm like, what's my daughter doing? What does she need? What's she looking for? Like, my husband will start looking for something. He won't even talk to me. And I'm just like, what are you looking for? Because I know probably where it is better than he does. So because of that, my energy is going to them all the time if I'm not alone. And so what I've found by being alone, I can go within. And I also feel better knowing there's not someone watching what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it has really been this huge discovery for me that I like to be alone sometimes.
But
And
that you're describing is very much what fits an empath. So not just the mom, but empaths have the same thing, and because we tend to take over people's energy, even when we haven't learned how to close ourselves up, we are like sponges that suck up everything in the environment. So you're constantly aware, you're constantly alert, you're constantly tapped in, tuned in, and then you also need your alone time, because then you can finally purge and let go and figure out if is what I'm feeling mine, or is it somebody else's that I picked up. And I am an extroverted introvert. So that means that I have moments where I'm very extroverted and I love going clubbing and dancing, and I love having, I'm standing on a stage and having talks to groups of people, and I can be the life of the party when I'm in the right energy and I'm feeling awesome and I'm feeling comfortable and I'm doing okay. But there are also days where I cannot people. I cannot people. I can barely do animal. I cannot do people.
yeah,
And
I get that, right? Just like limiting it. It's like, okay, if we're doing something Friday night, I'm staying home on Saturday night. Like, I did not used to have that rule. And now it's like, yeah, I can't do something 2 nights in a row. It's too exhausting.
exactly. And then I have days where I get myself out of bed because I need to feed the cats. And then I unplug the phone, I unplug the doorbell, and I just binge watch a series the entire day in my comfy clothes with my comfy food. And I need it sort of to recuperate. But at other moments, I need to go in nature and also be by myself and spend days at end sometimes to replenish. So it can be very different, but alone time is a very important thing. And usually in relationships, especially when there are children, alone time can be very difficult to find.
Yeah, for sure. Early on, well, I would say that maybe from the time my daughter was, say, 5 or 6, I went on a couple of long trips, and then after that, I did get this craving to go away, just for like a weekend, before the polyamory even started.
Mhm.
And I have to say, in my parent group, it was unheard of. Like, no, none of the other moms that had been like, oh, I could never do that. Like, my husband couldn't handle it, or I couldn't be away from my daughter that long, or whatever. And I'm talking about like 48 hours, like 72 hours, at an
What are we
Airbnb
talking about?
down the street, like just like you're a block away.
Yeah.
But those really helped me. And I struggled at first. I would go away the first 24 hours. I was great. And then after that, I'd be like, where's my people? Like, I got to text somebody. Like I would start reaching out and needing that, that connection. And I still crave it, but I can go a lot longer now and take the time to go within. And that's when you figure out what you actually want, whether it's where you want to live or what you want for dinner or whatever, but it's tapping into your actual desires.
Yes, and that's the very, very thing that's at the core of everything. What everybody I think eventually discovers is we're constantly looking for answers on the outside, and maybe a new course that we need to do, or a new healing modality, or a new coach, or a new mentor. And don't get me wrong, sometimes we do need one of or more of those things because they help us take another step on our path. But only if we look within, because in the end, everything that is keeping on blocking you or keeping on showing up needs to be solved on the inside.
So true. And it's really hard to stop that habit though, like of like looking outside and
Yeah.
and loking to your partner, right? And it's like, oh, well, they're supposed to complete me. They're supposed to fulfill me. This is this is basically what I was told. And so I would constantly, look outside and feed off of other people, right? And not in a, I would say not in a toxic way, but just because that's what fed me, was being around other people and that engagement and that interaction. And
Mhm.
now I've learned to like feed myself, right?
Yeah, I had the other way around where I was becoming more and more independent, and that cost me my relationship because my ex felt like he could no longer be a man. I was emasculating him by evolving and being able to take care of myself.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's interesting. What about the masculine feminine energy? I know you posted about this recently. What's your recent takeaways or aha about masculine feminine energy, or how does it impact you?
Well, for everybody, it's very different, and it's all about the yin and the yang, right? There cannot be yang without yin. There cannot be yin without yang. That's why I have the symbol with the circles in both halves. So there's always light in dark, and there's always dark and light. So there's always male energy in female. There's always female energy in males, and depending on a lot of factors, your biology plays a very big part in it. Your upbringing plays a very big part in it, the beliefs that have been handed down and what we've been talking about in this episode up until now, but also the environment where you grow up. If you're in a very toxic city, or you're growing up on a farm in the outskirts of something, right? There are so many things that play a factor in it. And some women have a lot of masculine energy. I had a lot of masculine energy, and if I'm not careful, I can still go into that direction because I've done it for so long and it's comfortable. And let's face it, it brought me where I am right now. So if I hadn't had that, if I hadn't tapped into that, I probably would have already killed myself. And so it was very important for a very long time, but now I am much more about balance and finding the feminine energy in myself and balancing the two. But you also see that with men, some men are very dominantly male and they need to be the ones that take care of the female, like my ex. And you need to be this helpless woman that says, oh, whatever you want there, and play that part. But that's not who I am. And you also have men that are very much in the female side. And no, I do not mean gay men per se, because I've also have straight male friends who see, oh God, you cut your hair, it looks amazing, and only this much went off, right? Where my
Love
female friends wouldn't even see it. He
it.
always sees it.
Uh-huh. That's interesting. Yeah. And there is a balance. I really ended up, I mean, it's all mixed. And so it's hard to say, but I feel like I was in my masculine for many, many years because I was like in control, dominant, aggressive, you know, planning all the time. And part of what I needed at some point was like, oh, I need to be in my feminine. I can look back and say this now. I didn't realize that at the time, but I wanted to be taken care of. I wanted someone else to make the decisions. I wanted to be nurtured. I wanted to be held. I wanted my expectations, the expectations of me to drop. I just wanted to be, you know, served. Like, oh my gosh. And I got to a point too. I remember thinking that being sick, like just having the flu, was like a little bit of a relief because that meant I really didn't have to get up. I didn't have to, like, I still felt guilty, but I had an excuse to stay in bed or not decide or not do something or not be productive.
Yes.
And that's terrible. I'm ashamed to say that because I certainly don't wish sickness on anyone, but it was a little bit of a relief sometimes when I couldn't be my usual productive, go self.
Yes.
And so I really was craving the feminine for a long time. And then eventually got that by going outside my relationship and had this with a boyfriend who we really played those roles very well together. But it can be extreme, right? So I was so much of my masculine at home, and then I would be completely my feminine there. And over time, I eventually started balancing things out. I became something in the middle where I didn't have to go like so feminine, so masculine. I was trying to weave them together in my current existence.
But you know, we first need to be completely in the masculine energy and then completely in the female energy to even know what the middle balance is.
Great point. Thanks for validating that. I mean, it's true. Yeah, I wouldn't have realized it or recognized it because in the beginning, I think if someone would have said to me, "Oh, you have so much masculine energy," I'm like, "What are you talking about? I'm super girly. I'm super female." Like, you know, I didn't get it, right? And so, yeah, I really had to go both those extremes to come back in the middle. And the dangerous thing, what I found is that if you stay too long in any one of those spaces, then you end up abandoning yourself.
Yes, it becomes very hard to go back to the other side. You can get stuck.
Yes, exactly. And I'm just like, oh no, but this is our dynamic. And this partnership is you're in the big masculine and I'm in the big feminine. And can we switch that? You know, can we do it? Is it too hard? We already kind of have our dynamic established. And so that takes a ton of work. And it's a lot of the work I've been engaging with.
Yes. I've been loving our talk. I think we had an amazing talk. And listener, viewer out there, we would love your input. What was the biggest takeaway that you had while listening to our talk? It would be amazing if you could share it below here in the comments. And if you loved our talk as much as I loved talking with Andrea this evening, then it would mean the world to both of us if you could like it, if you could share it with your audience, because chances are very big that you know someone who needs to hear what we've been talking about this evening, and you would be doing them a very big service by sharing this episode. So thank you. And I can also imagine that you feel inspired and you want to know, who is this Andrea person and where can I find her? So where can people find you, Andrea?
Yes. So where can people find me? So I have a podcast called Permission to Be Human. That can be found on all of the podcast platforms. The website is permissiontobehuman.live, where you can find out more about my coaching through transition, personal growth coaching, along with my partner, Janelle. And something else I do is really help people go through transitions. So I help them get brave, I help them bloom, and then I help them broadcast their message to the world. Yeah, I love doing that. I help, I mine people for their magic. I take their cornfield, turn it into a shot of whiskey. I'm distilling down all that is them so that they can be brave. And you can find me on LinkedIn or at thebootfactor.com.
Awesome. If you thought this went too fast, don't worry. Like always, all the links that we've been talking about will be below in the show notes, or maybe to the side or above. I never know where you're seeing this and where the notes are, but they're definitely in the notes, I promise. So thank you, Andrea, for being here this evening and for talking with me and having this wonderful conversation. And thank you, listeners, for being here, for supporting this channel, and for always liking it. And I hope to talk to you again next week with a different guest.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you for your courage and acceptance and having me on the show.
You're very welcome. Until next time.